I do want to talk about Bronco Mendenhall. There's been a lot of talk in the last few weeks about how, or not last few weeks, in this last week, since they lost to Utah State, about did he prepare, did he get charged up enough for the rivalry? I mean, did he view this as a rivalry? He spent a lot of the pre-week talking about, I mean, honestly, kind of spending his time dissing Utah.
Right.
And didn't come out and say it, but saying, basically asserting these guys will play us. This is a big game for us because it's an in-state team. And a lot of BYU fans, rightfully so, were very upset. They kind of felt that he was focusing more on the Utes. And it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. He was focusing more on the Utes not playing than actually preparing for Utah State.
Sort of dismissing Utah State, the game that lies ahead.
Right. And then on the radio, I heard it was a BYU player, and I'm sorry, I cannot off the top of my head remember his name, but he was on the radio, and he said, straight up, he admitted that they overlooked Utah State. And obviously, it's not a rivalry like Utah. I get that. It's just traditionally, historically, it hasn't been very competitive. But it has become, in recent years, very competitive, and there's been a lot of animosity back and forth. So does Bronco Mendenhall need to kind of put a charge and get players riled up for the rivalries? Another thing I'll say real quick is that he was asked about this very question, and he said, well, I don't know how to, I prepare 100% for every game. I don't know how to prepare more than 100% for a rivalry game. And for me, it's not necessarily preparing more. That's not the question. It's letting your teams know, your team know that this is your rival. This is a big, big deal, and it should be a big, big deal. This is a game that you mark down in the calendar, that you get up for. You can lose every other game, but you don't lose to your rival.
Yeah, that's sort of the feeling that needs to be had, and when Utah's not on the schedule, let's be honest, it's Utah State. One way or another, this was a game the Cougars need to have it. Risen to 18 in the rankings, and Taysom Hill got hurt. There was still an opportunity for them to even add to the sort of legacy legend that this team had going through the first 5 weeks of the season. And I'm not sure if Bronco failed him, but I think it tends to be, as I evaluate, the college athletics today, it seems to me that certain programs, and I'm going to put BYU in this group, don't give their opponents the complete respect they deserve when they haven't beat them yet in any given week. I feel like Alabama's in this group. I sort of feel like Oregon's getting to be in this group. These are programs where, look, no matter what you want to say, Utah State came in there and they whooped on BYU.
And they did it before Taysom Hill got injured.
Right.
I think that's something that needs to be emphasized.
They were doing it before he got hurt.
Right.
But the bottom line is BYU is more talented. And the only reason, minus turnovers, that Utah State should be able to beat them with Chucky Keaton out is that you didn't play your best. So admit that, you know what? Whether or not you overlooked them, you got beat. And hopefully for, BYU fans and Bronco Mendenhall, they can gain experience from this situation and not go on a downward slide.
I think they will. I mean, a big problem for Bronco, and honestly, his record has been fantastic since he took over. And you can't argue that. But one of the big knocks, and we've heard it from BYU fans. We've heard from BYU fans on this show who have been in here in studio and others through the voicemail and Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff, who've said one big knock that they have on him is that he doesn't seem to care very much about the rivalries, particularly the Utah rivalry. I mean, he's lost the last 4 in a row to Utah. And at some point, I mean, it just seems like, at least from what I'm hearing from BYU fans, because to me, it's very clear that he's not fully invested in these rivalries. I might go so far to say is he doesn't like having a rival, although after this week you can tell he very clearly misses playing Utah, because that's all he could really talk about was how one team would play him in state. But I'm not so sure he likes all the other stuff that goes along with it.
Yeah, I think the coaches who are most successful in rivalry matchups and games are kind of the ones who just embrace it for
it's
what
like
it is.
Urban Meyer. I mean, say what you want about Urban Meyer, and he may have taken. In fact, he did, in my opinion. He took it way too far. the rivalry, way too far. And I think that's kind of where all this animosity started. He took it to a whole other level. But he did. He came in here. He was from Bowling Green. He had no ties to Utah, but he came in and he's like, that's a rival. We're not going to refer to him by name. We're going to do all these things. We're going to put them on the floor mats so we walk over their logo and all this other stuff. And so he embraced it. And
he didn't lose to him.
And he didn't lose to him.
I mean, there's something to be said, whether he took it too far or not, is a matter for debate.
Sure.
But maybe with these guys, college kids, sometimes they need to understand. Because, look, really, and we've talked about it before, whether it's your fan base or your administration, there are certain games each year on a schedule that your fan base and the administration and the people who give the money to the program want to see wins. And if you're BYU and Utah, that's the game that they want to see the W. If you're Utah State, it's either of those games. And he doesn't have the same feeling. I'm not sure what it's like in the locker room before they go out, but I would think BYU fans would want to see a fired up Bronco. And I suspect we'll see that next year if Utah State's on the schedule, and 2 years from now when Utah's on the schedule. But he certainly leaves something, at least in my opinion, if I were a BYU fan, there's something missing from the way he deals with the rivalry that you just don't get it all.
I know what you mean, because, if you look at Kyle Whittingham, honestly, he doesn't say anything more than Bronco does about it. He doesn't tout, at least publicly, he doesn't upplay it. He doesn't, get rah-rah about it. He may behind closed doors, but it just seems like, and maybe this is just purely perception, but we've heard it from BYU fans for years, so ever since we've been doing this show, that it just seems like there's something missing when it comes to Bronco and the rivalry. And I think that absolutely should extend to Utah State now, without a doubt. This is, after this year, this thing should be a rivalry. Every single year coming up to this game, whether it's Utah playing Utah State or BYU playing Utah State, there's always the question, is this a rivalry? Is this really a rivalry? It is now. It is. They won in LaVelle Edwards Stadium. It is.
And they beat the Utes
Yeah, exactly. They beat the Utes. The Pac-12 team that they shouldn't beat, they did. And so Utah State needs to be taken seriously now, without a doubt. And I expect that you won't see it'll be very similar, I think, to a couple years ago when the Cougars lost to the Aggies up in Logan. They didn't lose to them a couple years after that. Right. And I think you're going to see a similar thing. I think Bronco's going to take this one more seriously. But, for the Cougar fans out there, I would like to know, would you like to see him put more emphasis on these rivalry games? Because he said the right things when he was asked the question. He said, I don't know how to prepare more than 100%. In my view, it's not about preparing more. You should prepare more. You should prepare 100% for every game. It's more about defining the culture around the rivalry and emphasizing it.
Well, and at a certain point, right? Yeah, there's right answers to questions that are asked by media. But I think this is even a generic, at least my perception of Bronco Mendenhall, is that I never get that feeling that he has this fire in the belly.
That's what, yeah.
And I don't really like Nick Saban, but when I listen to him talk, I'm like, damn, he's eating, he's sleeping, he is dreaming.
Sure.
He is, when he's using the bathroom, he's looking over the playbook.
Exactly.
Like he wants to smash everyone.
Yeah.
And if you're Auburn, he wants to smash you 2 times as bad as everyone else.
Yeah, right.
And I get that feeling with Urban Meyer. And I get that feeling with a lot of the great coaches where it's like, I'm just on edge. I want to win so bad that I'm about to snap if I don't.
Did you see Nick Saban's postgame after they lost?
Right.
He looked, he always looks crotchety and angry and mean and just kind of, I don't want to say the word.
Not the media room you want to be in. So
But it was extra oh man, we've been up to press conferences up at the U. Can you imagine being in that room?
No.
After that, no thanks, man.
So it just feels like he doesn't give it the oomph, if you will, that fans give it. And maybe that's not his job, but I think every once in a while, and I think Utah fans have been sort of missing this from Coach Whittingham from time to time, is I want to see you get angry.
Right.
I'm angry.
Right.
Why aren't you?
In the time to be
angry.
It's
not golf. He's not Freddie Couples.
Right. The time to be angry is not when you're up like 42-7 going into the fourth quarter and you decide to kick an onside onside kick.
Right.
Not the time.
No, that's
Nah.
not what we're looking
No,
for.
we want it after a bad
I want
loss.
you to go
after
Lou
Washington
Holtz.
State, man.
I want you to
Go
go
Lou
Lou
Holtz.
Holtz. I want you to grab the
Yeah,
dude by the
yeah.
face mask and grab
Bobby
him.
Knight, baby.
Yeah. I mean,
Get angry, man.
be
Get
careful,
in there.
but get angry.
Right.
Don't go Rutgers, but just be
Yeah,
careful.
Right.
Just be careful,
Right.
but be angry. Show me some passion.
Don't
That's all
go
we're
Mike
asking.
Leach, lock a dude in the shed.
No, we would
Let's
never
not do
support that.
No.
But I mean, you could wear your, I mean, just if I were thinking about it, if I were Kyle Whittingham, I'd throw on that Sugar Bowl ring. When they bother me, I just pop them on the helmet
there
with
you
it.
go. Well, we've seen Kyle Whittingham get angry at times.
Not lately, though.
No, definitely not. I mean,
Over the last 2 years, I don't really feel like
no.
I've seen that.
And
like
that's the time where he needs to be angry.
right.
Bronco Mendenhall, I don't know if I've ever seen him be angry. I've seen him be excited a couple times on the sideline,
Which were awkward.
which is very awkward, definitely. It's like when he tries to make a joke.
Right.
It doesn't quite land because
You
we're not
didn't
used
get that
to
joke?
Wait, did he just joke? Like,
Whoa.
Whoa.
Hey,
But
man. Hey.
I've never seen him get angry.
Right.
And maybe that's what's missing. I don't know. Maybe he's too mild-mannered. I don't know. So as BYU fans, I want to know kind of what BYU fans are thinking because we've heard it for years, but I'd like to get some definitive answers from BYU fans. What would you like to see from him? What would, if you think that he's not putting enough emphasis on the rivalries, what would you like to see him do to do that? I mean, what would make you happy? What would you like to see?